Welcome back to Gopher's Workshop. I'm your host, Aaron, and joining me, as always, is my fellow host, Crispy Chris.
Wait, why?
Because Salamanders today.
All right.
Crispy. Sorry, I ruined it. I ruined the whole segue, but I'm so excited.
Well,
Flamethrower Melta.
It seems like a good place to start. We'll cover a bunch of stuff today, but there is a new Salamanders Detachment. We don't have all the information yet, but we have most of it.
I'm loving it.
And it turns out it's pretty good. So it's very similar to the Flamestorm Detachment. It's a bunch of it, not all of it, a bunch of it is actually identical. Sounds good. There's, a fair amount of it. It was a good detachment to begin with, I guess is what I'm saying. So I'm not mad that they're updating it, but also they're keeping a lot of the good stuff that still existed. I think, first off, whether we talk about the old Firestorm or new Firestorm, and that's like one of the things we don't know if this is effectively going to replace it or if this is in addition to. We haven't gotten that clarification as of this recording. But this detachment lends itself to not only salamanders generically, because that's its like design, but it also really lends itself to making certain units good that I would argue are very not good in other detachments. We'll start with Centurions. I know Mitch loves Centurions, but even Mitch will tell you that like not having assault and being a 4-inch move on a actually big base,
it hurts.
It ain't great. And now with this new one, they have a fall back and shoot strat. So now like the one weakness of Centurions in this detachment, because it arguably fixes its movement issue with the assault. Now, even if they get tagged, they're not just kind of like stuck there for the rest of the game, right? So I think this detachment, for that reason alone, is giant. The way I kind of explained it, and I think some people really, I don't say were surprised, but they like kind of like understood a little better. This fallback and shoot strat, along with assault, is actually huge. And it's not just huge because it's like, no, we'd love to have that in every detachment. That just feels good, right?
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to overextend and be forgiven, right? Like having assault sounds good, but they're a casual player who's like still working on positioning or whatever else, right? They're going to overextend and then they're going to get punished for it because they got tagged into or something like that, right? In this scenario, as long as you still use terrain relatively well, right? So that you don't just outright die to shooting, the fallback and shoot, it makes it very forgiving. Like, no, you overextended, but it's okay. As long as you use terrain right and you live, you'll just fall back and it's like nothing bad happened. So I think this detachment, compared to its previous version, as well as compared to several other detachments, is extremely forgiving on top of being powerful.
I just want to say, also, for our decent to really good players, having the ability to overwatch on any unit and be effective, like super effective, is you're going to be taking a lot of meltas and flamethrowers.
Okay, sure, but that's kind of a separate conversation, right? Like if you're saying any unit because of a flamethrower thing, 100% I'm on board, right?
Absolutely.
No complaints. But also Overwatch always, and we've talked about this before, it has this like hidden tax, right? You don't just Overwatch willy-nilly because it doesn't do enough.
Yep.
But if you have like rerolls to hits, or every hit, your hits have like lethal hits, or even like sustain 2 or something, right? To where it's like, no, I don't roll very many 6s, but every 6 effectively is a wound, or every 6 is actually 3 hits. You can make Overwatch really powerful, but like you need something else, right? And don't get me wrong, Torrent is like the best something else, right? Like you just auto hit, you get 1,000,000 shots, sounds great. But yeah, Overwatch can be powerful, but only if used on a unit that kind of is allowed to, for lack of a better term.
Well, and the thing is with this, since you're a Codex compliant Space Marine, you're getting +1s to wound. on your oath targets, you're getting +1 to wound. And with this detachment, you're getting plus strength on your torrent weapons. Like, there's a bunch of stuff to add to this that makes it a lot better.
Yes, I still hesitate to say like that makes Overwatch better per se. I do think it does, right? But it's minor enough. If the oath rerolling to hit, arguably that's like the most important version of making Overwatch viable. The +1 to wound and the extra strength, I'm not going to be mad at it. I love it. I'll take it, absolutely. But that's almost irrelevant compared to the rerolling to hit, because Overwatch sucks when you're trying to like, nope, I just got to fish for 6s and hope. Well, you've got like 10 shots. I mean, statistically, you're going to get like 1 point something. I really want to spend a CP for a 1 hit probability. I don't know. Well, now I got rerolls to hit. So even on 10 dice, it's like for sure 2, maybe more. Okay, well now it seems more reasonable because I have scary melted guns. Yeah, it seems good. So
at any rate,
anyway,
what's next on our? Come on, tell me more about this lovely little crispy detachment.
Okay, so I don't like to speculate, but also there's like I get a ton of questions, right? So with this detachment, we don't have all the information. We've seen the detachment rule. We've seen the stratagems. Speaking which, I suppose I should say, one of the major updates is if you're playing Vulcan, you gain like this additional benefit. So this is supposed to be one of the things that actively encourages it. It's not like a Marine detachment, it's a Salamanders detachment. Because if you play Vulcan, now you get this giant benefit. And that benefit is Infernus get to advanced shoot and charge. Advanced shoot and action.
Yeep.
Crazy powerful and exactly what you want. I'm on board. No complaints. Okay. That being said, we don't know exactly, like, again, whether this replaces the old detachment. We don't know if this is an indicator that it's going to be like, no, but Salamanders only get to play this. I don't think that's the case, but I mean, it could be. We don't have confirmation yet. It has brought up a bunch of rumors about, are they going to do a Space Marine 2.0 codex this edition? I think they are. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon because they need to get through, like, they've already announced the White Scars characters, the Iron Hands, this and that. I think they're going to get through all that first. But I think this is like reasonably an indicator that they're going to release all those other guys fairly quickly. And as they release those other guys, they're going to like update the Outrider detachment to be like slightly more specific to White Scars, but still available to all Marines, right? And then as they get done with all of these, they're like, here's the 2.0 codex, and all those old detachments that we've updated effectively disappear, but it's okay. You have the slightly better version or the slightly different version to help mix it up. I think this is solid, right? 2.0 codex, sure. They're grabbing more of our dollars. We got to pre-buy the code. That kind of sucks. But also being able to mix it up slightly as far as like abilities and detachments and stuff like that, and not just points. I think that's good for the game. I think that's good for not letting it get too boring. I also think that's good for our opponents, right? Like I'm playing Marines, right? But even as a non-Marine player, and you guys have like figured it out, right? You already know everything about your codex. You're the most popular faction out there, and it's been played since the beginning. Give me something different so that even my opponents get to have a better time. So I think this is good. I'm glad when 2.0 comes out that if they get rid of the old detachments, because rules bloat could become an issue, right? I say I'm playing the Salamanders detachment, and now there's like 2 different versions of that. I still don't know. Do you have access to that weird transport strat, or do you have access to that other strat that replaced it in the? I don't know. So I hope they come out with 2.0 at some point to mitigate some of the rules bloat. But I also want it to come out, I guess, because I want them to keep doing these updates to detachments and giving us a little bit of a mix up so that Marines aren't quite as vanilla.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what can we expect to see in this new detachment?
So I think you're going to see a handful of things that are almost auto includes. First off, especially if you're playing Salamanders from the get-go, you're obviously going to see Vulcan. You got a new model. We don't know how different his data sheet is yet. Again, as of this recording, by next week when this comes out, maybe it'll be updated and we'll get that information. But you're almost auto including Vulcan. Now that you have Vulcan, you are obligated to take some amount of the Infernus to gain the benefit from taking Vulcan. Okay, cool. Those are in the detachment. We kind of expected to see that anyway, but also that's happening. I still think you're going to see a solid amount of Flamer aggressors because the strats still talk about Flamers, and aggressors are the tougher and kind of all around unit that does Flamers. Assault still makes them great. They have Power Fist to back it up. I think that's going to be, I don't know by how much. I'm not going to say you're spam it, but I do think you're going to include it. As I mentioned earlier, Centurions. This is absolutely, Centurion Devastators are arguably a mediocre unit at best. This detachment specifically skyrockets their efficiency from mediocre at best to like borderline auto include. Again, do you spam it? I don't know. They're expensive. But do you include some of them? Almost certain. And then I know we are technically losing some of like the strats for the transports and it's less transport focused. I would not be surprised if you're still doing some transport tricks, like the regular repulsor, being able to dump out Vulcan and his boys, do a bunch of sweet damage and abilities, and then stand next to the repulsor so that I can re-embark them and protect Vulcan whenever I need to. That's still a pretty reasonable strat, even losing the like air quotes transport support that the detachment gave you.
Do you think we're going to actually see Adrax Agatone be used?
He is not, as far as I'm aware, getting an update as of these changes, right? Between the combat patrol, which he is in.
Yep.
He could get an update, but I've heard nothing about it. So I'm going to assume he's getting no update. If he gets no update, probably not. I think you have a new shiny Vulcan model. Everyone's going to want to play.
Yeah.
I think Vulcan has so many benefits, even if his data sheet doesn't change, which it could. I kind of expect it to at least a little bit. Even if his data sheet doesn't change, there's too many benefits to him over Agatone. And Agatone is already, he's like melee focused, right?
Yeah.
Not only his model, but like his abilities. So
yeah.
like
he's rerolling wounds on melee attacks only.
Right.
And then if you're engaged with the unit, they have their objective control. So he's about tying up units, which, okay, I can see him being useful if you want to contest an objective.
Right. But it's still rough, right? Because at that point you want a tanky unit. Well, there's no point in putting him with Gravis.
No.
Like even if you could, right? Like putting him with aggressors, because that's like a Salamander's unit, doesn't make any sense because they already have twin linked. Why would I buy that character and gain no benefit? And then you put him with something else. Like if you could put him with Blade Guard,
you can.
Right. But I'm saying like that's maybe the best and only option for him.
Yeah.
Because they've got the 4-pin vault. You reroll saves so you can really tie them up. And he's a decent melee character, which is what the unit wants to do anyway.
Yep.
So,
but then you're losing your fight first and precision while throwing the Judy in because you can't have both.
And while that's fair, I'm going to argue the fights first is the only part that you're really losing because you still have an extremely scary character in melee.
Yeah.
So while it costs you a CP, you could still precision as is appropriate. And while that's not, let's say, as efficient because you have to spend a CP, I don't mind that because you're doing other things, right? Like if they don't have a character, well, now you're having OC and Marines have kind of low OC. So I'm fine with that, right? Like I still think he's a good choice with Blade Guard despite losing the fights first. But it's kind of like his only option. You could put him with Assault Intercessors. It's not the worst, but I don't know that it's good enough.
Yeah, I mean, he standalone in melee is wounding most things on 2s. Infantry on 2s.
Yeah.
If it's not because of his own stat line with the 10 strength, it's also because of the +1 to wound from the army.
Well, +1 strength from the army, but
no. Because of the oath as well. So if you oath the thing,
from the oath. Yeah.
So let me be very clear. Yeah, he gets +1 to strength. So he's still wounding those things on 2. But if you oath him and you throw him in, then yeah, he's wounding on 2s either way, which is great. But throwing him with intercessors and expecting him to carry all the weight, and he's only got 5 attacks, he's not going to get.
Yeah.
No.
Again, he's not a bad model, and there are uses for him, Blade Guard specifically. But I feel like he has a ton of options, and his abilities just don't support most of the units he can join. So he feels a little hemmed in. Yep. Which, to be fair, there's a whole nother discussion here, right? Of like, there are several leaders that I would argue have a laundry list of they can join like 10 different units, but only like 2 of them make sense. That's kind of normal. I'm not mad about that, but it's just the reality of like, is he going to be an auto include? In no way is he an auto. Vulcan feels like an auto include, especially now with like these updates. That being said, I'm
just going to say this. If we were to take away the objective control characteristic, having objective control, we were to take that completely away and give him fights first. You know what? Now he's going in every Blade Guard I throw because he's re-rolling all the wounds, which means you're always selecting with your Blade Guard reroll saves.
Sure, but I feel like the argument is he's not meant to be a Judy, right? Like he's not meant to go out and deal damage. Can he? Absolutely. But they gave him a low number of attacks because he's supposed to be a support character. Yes, he's scary in melee because he's got the big hammer and he's scary, but his job is support. He messes with OC. He lets the rest of the unit reroll to wounds. He's supposed to support. You give him fights first, and now I'm going to argue he's not really a support. He is like actively a damage buff. So again, I don't have a problem with him being a damage buff, but the argument is GW saw a different job for him, which is fine. And right now, that other job for him isn't super relevant, but also I don't mind it either. You could put him with Blade Guard and be extremely happy. We'll talk about this later, but into like Knights, for example, you're giving whatever he's attached to, Blade Guard, reroll to wounds. Don't hate it because it's full reroll to wounds.
Yep.
And then on top of that, having the OC on a Knight, that's actually a lot of OC reduction.
Yeah.
I don't mind it. It seems pretty reasonable. If you include him in his list, there's nothing wrong with it. I'm fine with it. He's just not anywhere near as powerful as Vulcan, so I don't see him as an auto.
We'll get to it later, but I kind of feel with that point you just made, I kind of feel like he might be an auto include in the current state of the meta. But we'll get to it later. The last part of this episode. Let's finish up talking about this particular detachment. Vehicles. Do you foresee vehicles being taken in this detachment?
I'm going to say yes, but it's specific vehicles. There are the Brutalis, right?
Yep.
Not only do you gain assault because you want to be close, and he is advancing turn 1 almost every game anyway, right? Because he needs to get to melee. So that's huge, but also the +1 strength, having my Melta go up an extra strength. That's effectively a +1 to wound half the time. I love that. Let's do that. So Brutalis, I think, is for sure still getting played in this detachment because it gains every benefit possible. In addition to that, there are several others. The Redeemer Land Raider with its flamers going from strength 6 to strength 7, having access to some sweet strats to give it dev wounds. Okay, that seems pretty good too. Also having a transport capacity you can charge out of is going to make flamer aggressors better. So again, there's vehicles that are for sure going to be played. But does this detachment, like you're playing Marines, right? Do you just generically include a Lancer, Gladiator Lancer? Probably not. It's not bad to include. You already own the model. Put it in the list. It's solid tank busting. I'm not going to argue against it. But also, is it like the most efficient or most competitive? Well, probably not because it has no synergy. Like, are you ever even going to be within the 12 inches to get the +1 strength?
No.
Even if you were, you care about the +1 strength? No. Are you advancing the Lancer? No. Like,
no, my whole thing is, the reason I asked this question is because, as you know, old Salamanders lists, there's a lot of vehicles.
a lot.
And a lot of vehicles. When I first saw this one come across, I was like, I only see like maybe 2 or 3 vehicles being taken in this list.
Sure.
Not a lot.
Right. But I think they are going to be pretty powerful when you do take them, though, right? Like, again, whether it's Brutalis is going to gain a +1 to wound that stacks with +1 to wound oath, like, because they're getting the +1 strength, which in this case equates to +1 to wound. That's crazy powerful.
Yeah.
Assault cannot be understated how important that is to a shooting faction. And then whether you're talking about the Repulsor, which we saw in the old one, I think is still powerful. No complaints about it. The Land Raider Redeemer, still powerful. No complaints about it. So some of these are still incredibly powerful and will be taken. But you're right. They're going to see probably half the number of vehicles we saw before.
Which is, I argue, pretty good. Because when I think Salamanders, I don't think tons of vehicles. I think tons of aggressors, Centurions, like I think big guns and flamethrowers everywhere as far as the eye can see.
Yep.
And every time I fought a Salamanders player on the tabletop, and it's not their fault, but I was disappointed because I saw a lot of tanks and not a lot of bodies. And I'm sitting here going, well, this is not what I wanted thematically.
Right. So hold on. That's the easiest way to say this is that's your opinion, right?
Is my opinion, yes.
Salamanders are all about like the forge, right? And they're like making these mastercrafted weapons and they love big honking hammers. And like, there's an argument to them being mechanized is reasonable within the lore, right? At least some of them are very mechanized because they like the big, chunky, tough. That's their thing, is being tough. So
sure,
mechanized is reasonably on theme. Is that like what GW has kind of taught us in previous editions that they look like? Not necessarily, but also that still reasonably fits their like core ideas. So I don't mind that we were mechanized for a reasonable amount of time.
Sure, but my issue is when I see 3 Land Raider Demers and a Repulsor and like a Dreadnought, and like you've got a unit of Infernus Marines, a unit of small brick aggressors, and a unit of Blade Guard. That's it for your whole list. Like, it felt kind of bad. I sit there and I'm like, well, this isn't what I was expecting. It's just like a couple dudes running around the field and some tanks. And again, not saying anything bad about them because they absolutely smoked me every time we fought. The flamethrowers hurt.
You're right. You were the one that was smoking.
Yeah, I was smoking. But again, it's just thematically for me. I was like, I expected to see more bodies on the field, like
and
flamethrowers everywhere.
For sure going to see that now, right?
Yes.
Because like, again, not only did you technically have access to this before with the +1 strength and advance, but like Eradicator's crazy efficient with these benefits. But again, now you gain a fallback and shoot strat, so you can like overextend a little more often and be okay with it. You are definitely going to see more infantry than you saw before.
I'm going to add, before we decide to take a mid break, I'm going to add what I think I'm also going to see a lot in this list. Drop pods.
Very reasonable. Whether it's I guess not aggressors, but Blade Guard or Infernus, like especially with the increased size. Yeah. Oh, wait, no, sorry. Eradicators, Gravis. They don't go in there anymore.
Sorry. No, yeah, you're right. But anyway,
No, but you want to do that? You can still do that. It turns out Firstborn dev squads take a bunch of multi-meltas.
There we go.
You deep strike turn 1. You're already in melta range. And now you get a +1 strength, which is effectively +1 to wound against half of your vehicle targets, right? You want to just absolutely say your ballistas is dead turn 1. A drop pod with a dev squad using multi-meltas. It's on theme. It's very good. And because they're Firstborn, they're also reasonably priced. No complaints. And that still leaves enough of a drop pod that you could run a full Blade Guard unit to protect them with character.
So I said, at least a drop pod in some of these lists. I think we're going to start seeing in the competitive meta, especially when we get to the last part of this episode. We start talking about the new state of the meta. I foresee some drop pod taking in this list.
we have to wait a little bit because like technically this isn't out. We've gotten the spoilers, but like not playable per se. But yeah, no, I think this actually helps drop pods become more relevant, at least let's say more mainstream.
Yep.
I was playing them back when they were considered awful, but I do that with a lot of units. I think this is going to make them a little more mainstream.
Yep. All right. Well, let's go to our mid break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the meta. Well, welcome back to our mid break. We're here. It's the middle of the show. There's no Chris for me to tease. I'm all alone for this mid break. Well, then, I guess it's time to thank our patrons. So, a huge shout out to our patrons, starting with our Guardsman patron, Sergeant Matt. Next up is our White Shield Guardsman patrons, Mitch and Nicodemus. So, thank you to our patrons, because without you, we wouldn't have a show. And thank you to our dear listeners as well, because without you, we'd just be talking to ourselves on a microphone. So, thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our patrons. And with that, the reason Chris isn't here is we're preparing to go to Nova. So on the announcement train, we're going to be at Nova next week. We're going to have our own booth. So come hang out with us. Come say hi. Come chill. Come pick up some used models from us, because we're going to be selling those used models on the cheap. So yeah, come see us at Nova, get some used models, and give us a crisp high five and say hello. But also the bad side. So, because we're going to Nova, that means we aren't going to be recording an episode next week, which means, unfortunately, Nova week, we won't have an episode for release. But when we come back, we'll have an episode ready to go for you. We'll be back on our normal schedule. So, come see us in person. Say hi. With that, let's get to the last part of our episode. All right, Chris. Middle of the show's over. You ready? You ready to get into it? This is the meta. What you gonna do about it? That face of absolute disapproval.
See, when I said it, it didn't sound that dumb.
You're right, but I had to spice it up. I had to do the dumb. Give me the meta. What's our meta right now? What's going on?
So let's start with recognizing what the current meta is as far as factions, not like individual lists, because that varies some, whatever. But we can get a kind of a brief summary by just recognizing, if I were to go to a GT this week, what are the most likely things that I'm going to play against? Well, the reality is the most likely things are Imperial Knights, Chaos Knights, Death Guard. Those are almost certainly the top three. Okay. So if we know that I'm going to go to a GT, I'm certainly going to play a minimum of one of these, if not multiple, depending on how many rounds it is, right? Like a 5-round event, maybe I play them once. We're playing we're going to Nova soon. That's like a 9-round event. I'm definitely playing one of these top three at least twice, right? So I'm going to see Death Guard once, probably. I'm going to see a Knight variant at least once, probably. Maybe I see Knights twice and don't see Death Guard. Like, that's kind of our statistical averages. So you're right. What are we going to do about that? So how do I prepare my list? How do I adjust my play style in order to handle these things? Is it going to stay a Knight meta forever? No, absolutely not, right? But because we know that, things like Meltas, super in demand right now. So normally I would say Meltas are kind of not tank busting weapons, but I'm going to argue Meltas are primo at the moment, because when we look at Knights, if we're shooting the big Knights with Meltas, probably not the greatest still. How did you take that instead of Lascan or something, right?
Yeah.
But when we're looking at War Dogs, well, now I've got some Eradicators, right? So I've got those Meltas, they're strength 9 against T9, re-rolling to wound. It's pretty good. Okay. And then you're also looking at Death Guard, right? They're in mass T6 and T7. Well, now strength 9 looks really good all the time.
Yeah.
They're in mass having like 3 and 4 wound models. Now the D6 feels pretty good. Like it's a little random, but also like, I like it. The fact that they're in like, again, Death Guard in mass are running fetid bloat drones, blight haulers. Again, these are vehicles, so we're getting those re-rolls if we're using eradicators being the example, but there are others, right? Melta in general. T9 or strength 9 looks pretty solid there. The high AP looks very solid there. The D6 damage looks very solid. Meltas are a premium, right? Like we can go away from Marines, right? That's the easy answer because it's most popular and everyone knows, right? But we can go away from Marines and it's still true. You're going guard. Let's swap out those heavy bolt responsons for, multi-meltas. Let's swap out the, plasma cannons for more multi-meltas. Meltas are a premium. Furthermore, generally the answer is tank busting, right? We got them big knights to deal with. Tank busting comes in a few different forms. We don't have to just take las cannons, okay? Whether that's solid melee choices with dreadnoughts, brutalises are great at the moment.
Yep.
Melta plus good melee against tanks, premium. We're also looking at mortal wounds. So jump pack intercessors are arguably, they got a Knight Lancer. Well, it turns out he's a hard nut to crack, right? T11, bunch of wounds, 4 up invul. Okay, cool. But turns out jump pack intercessors, reasonably cheap, well-rounded. And now if I don't want to give up, like I feel like I already have enough tank busting because I'm struggling with how much do I need, jump pack intercessor is a good choice. It's technically not tank busting, but you get that Knight Lancer. How about I just deal 6, ish mortal wounds on the charge, and then maybe my chaplain gets a few extra in.
Yep.
Well, now my dice aren't that great, but if I charge in with jump pack intercessors and a chaplain, not only do I deal a bucket of mortal wounds on the charge, and then maybe more with the chaplain, the +1 to wound could get me some damage. But before I even select them to fight, I dealt mortal wounds on the charge, and I also charged in with my Brutalis. Again, mortal wounds on the charge, the Brutalis probably kills it off before they're allowed to interrupt with the Lancer. That feels pretty good.
Well, and the thing is, especially with the Brutalis, you can double stack those mortal wounds because it's got an ability. It's got mortal wounds and you can tank shock.
So again, we keep talking about Marines because it's the easy answer. That doesn't mean that you don't have access to this in a bunch of other factions. Okay. If we look at other factions that have mortal wounds on the charge, there are plenty. Okay. And that's just for mortal wounds on the charge. That's not to say you can't take a bucket of guns that have dev wounds. You could go Stern Guard, right?
Yep.
Again, I'm trying to get away from Marines, but they're like easy answers that people all kind of recognize.
And a lot of factions have access to dev wounds or mortal wounds.
Gene Stealer cults, you can just fish for dev wounds. Sisters with the flamers, the hand flamers. Yeah, the strength is terrible, but who cares? We only cared about the dev wounds anyway because we were going to wound on 6s, whatever. Why not ignore the 4 up invul on a Lancer? Why not ignore the 5 up invul on the Castellan, right? Like, still solid choices. You took the enhancement for 2 up armor. I'm glad you did that, but also dev wounds, right? Do we have mortal wounds? Tend to be hard to find, but the fact that they're hard to find, it's because they're so efficient, right? You find those good bodies, whether that's jump sisters with hand flamers, whether that's, jump pack intercessors or Brutalis or whatever. It's probably still pretty good. You can find them attached to good, scary bodies like the Brutalis, where it's doing a bunch of jobs, right? I can multi-melt to that War Dog. Maybe I don't kill it, but he's half dead now or bracketed, so someone else can finish him off. And I'm going to charge the Big Knight because I've got the Grabby Claws of Strength 12. That's pretty solid. Also mortal wounds, so I can round that invul. We have a bunch of options. Can we keep our list effectively the way it is with minor adjustments? I'm going to argue yes, because unless your list is basically, I'm going to volume of dice horde kill you because I'm playing infantry spam gaunts. Okay, are they going to struggle with knights? Absolutely. You're going to need more than a little tweak for that. But hardly anyone's running in Swarm Tyranids right now. Most people are running much more balanced lists that were previously meant to deal with elite busting, because that's like all anti-elite was kind of the meta before. It was play elite with anti-elite. Those lists, we're talking reasonably minor adjustments. Add in some extra multi-meltas, add in some extra, mortal wounds. That's all you really need, right? You can still play those elitist lists that we were playing before. You can still run a bunch of anti-elitists, because if you're not playing against knights, the anti-elitist was still pretty reasonable against Death Guard. As you continue down the list beyond those top 3, you still want anti-elitist, right? So I think minor adjustments to most people's lists deal with the new meta. You don't have to rework your whole plan. Little bit of Melta, little bit of Las Cannon, little bit of, it's mostly war gear changes with a couple of minor unit changes. And you get there.
Yep. I throw this out every episode, but it's because I only play one faction. Blood Angels list, my list, is a prime example of this.
Yep.
I have found ways to take tank busting without actually taking tank busting in a lot of ways, whether it be mortal wounds, whether it be dev wounds, whether it be tons of +1 to wounds, lances, whatever. I have found ways around for pinvols, around their toughness, around all kinds of things that they want to pull. And I even have a list where I've brought in a Knight Lancer to still do the same thing. Yeah, sure, its lance is really tank busty, but also I use a lot of mortal wounds on it. It has a free tank shock.
Yep.
All mortal wound things before I even bother to fight them. That is my shtick. I fight you before I fight you. That's my whole shtick.
But again, that's how you're listing. Yeah.
Again, this brings me to the whole point of bringing this up. Right now, Blood Angels is looking pretty good for a lot of Space Marine players. Whether they know it or not, it's a good option for those who are out there always meta chasing.
Yeah.
Blood Angels is looking pretty good right now. Another one with this new detachment, Salamanders, looking pretty good right now. With a lot of the abilities to run Meltas at top efficiency. Really good for Space Marine players right now.
Absolutely.
The list goes on.
And to be fair, we have the old version of that detachment, right?
Yep.
And the things that make Meltas good in that detachment, arguably, we still have most of those, if not all of them, right? We don't get the fallback and shoot. All right, that's fair. But still get the +1 within 12 for strength. You still get assault, which most Melta is like short range, right?
Yep.
We still have access to most of the tools.
Yep. And that's the thing is that you have access to a lot of the answers right now. And if you're not a meta chaser and you're like, no, but I only play Ultramarines, or I only play White Scars, and that's fine. You still have access to the same answers. Eldari, the list goes on. You all have access to these answers.
Yep.
In some way, shape, or form.
And so again, some of it's minor shifts, right? Like how many Sanguinar Guard units versus jump pack intercessors.
Maybe
we're going to make a
less.
little shift towards jump packs because the mortal wounds, right? Like Lance is good, but mortal wounds better. Eldar, how many units of Fire Dragons are we running?
Yep.
Right? We just running 1, maybe 2. Well, okay, now maybe it's like 2 or 3 because of the meta shift, right? Every faction has access to them.
Yep.
Again, how difficult is it really to look at all of my like Rogaldorns and Layman Russes and be like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and swap out my plasma cannons or my heavy bolters for multi-meltas.
Yep.
I'm going to swap out the little like heavy stubbers for regular melta guns. It's really not that rough of a like list change.
Yep.
To be able to go from, I don't feel like I have enough tank busting because the whole meta shifted arguably to like a toughness skew to, but you know what? My list to like the people I've played several times doesn't look that different. I don't know that they've changed anything.
Yep.
But I've made enough like war gear changes or like a unit or 2 changes. You could make a solid argument for like, you like Samurai Guard better than Jump Pack Intercessor. Sure. But what if you drop like a couple, let's drop like the Ball Predator and get in some Eradicators. Well, it turns out that's like a 1 unit change that's making a real world difference because the Meltas are so valuable right now.
Yep. I dropped, prime example, I dropped a unit of the jump pack intercessors, and I dropped the ball predator, and I dropped a 3-man unit of blade guard, and put in predator annihilator and 2 ballistas. And sure, it's not the Melta, right?
But that is tank busting.
But
right?
it is tank busting.
You acknowledged the meta.
Yep.
And said, hey, I'm still running mostly jump packs.
Yep.
I'm still running like all my sweet Blood Angels characters. I'm still doing what I was doing before.
Yep.
But I took some of the utility units, which is to say the 3-man blade guard. They weren't actually scary, right? But they were like a good utility piece for relatively cheap. I took my utility pieces and I shifted those to be more tank busting oriented because the meta is knights at the moment, right?
Yep.
And again, is that going to stay that way? No. We're all going to make these shifts and adjustments, whether it's war gear, so it makes it just a little tougher for them, whether we like your list, whether we make some arguably bigger changes to make real amounts of tank busting on top of what we had before. You could do these things, and that's going to help balance out knights, but if they don't look as impressive on paper because the meta is answering them appropriately, the number of players is going to go down because there's meta chasers out there, right?
Yep.
So if the meta chase goes down, there's less knight players. Well, now you get to come off some of that tank busting and bring back some more JPI or something like that, right?
Yep.
Again, it's this constant ebb and flow, but in answering the knights, we don't have to nerf them to answer them. We can make adjustments, change our target priority. Again, I watched Chaos Knights have come out arguably recently. I watched some games in the shop, and it was kind of funny to watch everyone panic about like, oh, big knights are in my face. Okay, well, I need to take care of this rampage. So I'm gonna put all my Melta into it. And then it didn't go very well for them. And knights are crazy. This is gonna be so tough. But then 2-3 games later, now they're putting all their Melta into the War Dogs. And now it's like, yep, I had to feed a unit to the Rampagers. There goes my JPI. But my Eradicators took care of like a War Dog a unit. Well, first off, that's a points trade, right? Like it's like 100 points for more than 100 points. And then on top of that, we've now reduced their model count, which knights already have a low model count. So...
well, now and you make it so maybe that giant Rampager doesn't want to be in your face right now because his job now changes from whapping units to now I got to go stand on the point because if I don't, nothing else will. The thing I realized very early on was when you take these modular units, all right, when you take these JPI with mortal wounds, or you take this ballistas or the brutalis and mortal wounds, you take these mortal wound capable units. They almost never shift out of the meta. And the reason is because there's not really a way to answer them other than feel no pain.
Correct.
And there's not a lot of feel no pain to go around. I don't care what you're playing. Right. There's not a lot of it.
See, but this is exactly why I think Custodes became so prevalent for a minute, right?
Yeah.
It's because they actually had mortal wound answer. And at the time before they were like top dog, there was a lot of mortal wounds going around.
Yeah.
Like Sternguard were kind of all over the place. And then Custodes came out. Well, I didn't say came out, but they came like into the spotlight. And Custodes started doing great. And then Sternguard dropped like a rock. People stopped playing Sternguard. Are Sternguard still good? Absolutely. But are they bad against Custodes? Well, kind of, yeah. So again, it's this constant flow of like, we're making minor changes. Do you think all the Ultramarines players that were playing Sternguard like reworked their whole list, or did they just drop Sternguard and decide, you know what, I'll take this instead?
Yep.
And that's all they did. They said, you know what, instead of Sternguard, Hellblasters are pretty solid. I got that double oath, +1 to wound. That deals with Custodes pretty good.
Well, and again, when that shift happened, because I've always played Mortal Wounds heavy, right? Sure. And I fought into Custodes. The answer wasn't that they had a lot of good answers to Mortal Wounds. It was finding workarounds to that. Well, now I have 2 units that have Mortal Wounds, and you can only really do the feel no pain once. So what's your answer? Like finding workarounds was my answer to that problem. But a lot of people just didn't want to take those mortal wounds. They didn't want to learn those workarounds. And here we are now where it's almost an absolute must that you do take these mortal wounds, that you do take these meltas, that you do take these devs. And people are going back to the shift of now I have to deal those directs.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is they never left. It's just we didn't realize how to use them, is what I believe.
Sure. I would, the Custodes era, for lack of a better term, I remember in the store, everyone was, Custodes were on top. Objectively true.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I remember trying to teach person after person. But do you know how crazy wardens are? Yeah, they're absolutely nuts. I don't know how to deal with them. It's like, you know how you deal with them? That feel no pain's a problem. But what if you convince your opponent that they need to pop the feel no pain
somewhere
in the
else.
Wrong phase?
Yep.
If you absolutely convince them, hey, you don't want a mortal wound or you don't want to feel no pain at the beginning of the shooting phase because I clearly am going to charge you with this brick. You want it for after I charge you with the JPI.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Well, now that you've done that, what if you focus fire down the warden unit because he chose not to? What if you instead, I've got this unit of stern guard. I'm going to position them so that they're probably going to shoot at the wardens because they're on the objective. Well, they pop their feel no pain. Well, now, you know what? I'm going to shoot at that other unit in the back that didn't pop feel no pain, that like the regular custodian guard or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to shoot at them. Why? They're not relevant at the moment. But also, I could throw all of my stern guard dice at these wardens and do next to nothing.
Yep.
Or I could do a real amount of damage to a low priority target. And now they've wasted their feel no pain. And even if I lose my stern guard after that, I got my points out of them. I killed enough regular custodian guard that maybe I didn't take the point back, but I earned my points back. So I'm keeping parity. And then I'm letting the stern guard die, but they've wasted their feel no pain. So now I can bring up my other unit and actually deal with them because they can't feel no pain anymore. It was about like that manipulating your opponent into popping the feel no pain in the wrong phase. And that made Custodes way more manageable.
And here we are again. Now it's not the feel no pains though. Is the problem? It's
the war dogs.
The war dogs. It's the action. Like, we're all distracted by the big thing.
Yep.
Because it's scary.
The Knight Lancer, the Canis Rex. Man, how do I deal with Canis Rex? He's crazy. You're right. But also, if I feed him a min JPI unit, does he absolutely clobber them? 100%. But in doing so, if I can get rid of 2 war dogs this turn, or maybe get rid of Canis Rex, I would rather get rid of the 2 war dogs. And now Canis Rex has to make a real choice of like, they deep struck in my backfield. They killed enough war dogs that if I want to deal with that, prevent them from like Scorched Earth, my home objective, I got to send Canis back. I can't keep pushing forward. Well,
and the meta has shifted in the point scoring field as well, because before it's like a 60% of the time I got to hold my home. It's almost like every game now that you have to hold your home objective.
I don't know that it's that bad, but also, yes, there's still a very real percentage of hold the home. A thing to talk about in Imperial Knights specifically, because I think Chaos Knights are very good, but they're arguably a little more balanced because like the Codex intended them to be this way.
Yep.
You'd have a whole conversation about Imperial Knights got a bunch of changes that weren't like, there's no Codex.
We weren't ready for it.
It's like half change, right? We're mid change.
Yep.
But one of the things right now is with Imperial Knights is taking the Navigator for the home field objective. Okay, well, he's got the like, don't deep strike within 12, which basically means is unchargeable. But also, that's all they want to put in their backfield. Everything else wants to go forward, right? I don't want to put a over 100 point war dog on my home objective all game. He can't see anything.
Yeah.
So this Navigator, to me, is a hilariously like Marines being the example, because that's, again, what most people play. Of 75 point suppressors gets to deep strike on turn 2 in your home field, gets to, even though he's outside 12, gets to clobber this also 75 point Navigator. Okay, well, this sounds pretty great. Why? Because I've taken your home objective away from you. I'm in your deployment zone, which means later on when I get behind enemy lines or whatever else, right? Like I get points there. Next turn, I have a 12-inch move, so I'm guaranteed, even without advancing, to get on the objective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then we'll continue further down. Later turns, I have incredibly long-range guns. So I get to suppress something later. So even if they decide not to come backwards, which, boy, depending on what like your mission is, they really want to do that. Scorched Earth being an example.
Yep.
Even if they decide not to, you are moving forward. They're moving forward into your, like, against your stuff, but your suppressors on their home field get to take a pot shot. They don't have to do a single point of damage, and they are helping defend your other units. And we're doing this for points parity. I've earned my points back objectively, and then I'm still doing objective focused work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing action focused work, and I'm doing actual damage debuff work after I've already earned my points back on turn 2.
Yep.
This is hilariously good. And it's because while the Navigator has real upside, right? Compared to what else you could put on the objective, it's cheap. He makes it to where, like, if their deep strike threat is melee, it doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, he is good. I'm not saying don't play him, but I'm saying there are answers that people aren't looking at that could just demolish a Navigator, almost guaranteed, and then still do so much work beyond that.
Yep.
Do the thing.
Right. We've spent a lot of time talking about the current meta and how to deal with it. You got anything else to add to this?
It's a constantly evolving thing. So while we're talking about it this week, we're going to revisit it, whether it's next month or the month after, right? We're all looking forward to the points updates that are going to come in September, right after Nova. Again, I don't know if it's going to be like the week after Nova or 2-3 weeks after Nova. It depends on how much they want to take Nova information and influence those adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, in September, we're getting a points update, which means we're going to have arguably a meta shift. And even if it isn't a hard shift, it'll be enough of a switch up that, like, maybe the answers we had 2 nights, well, it was Eradicators, but now it's going to be this other thing. Like, again, we'll see what they do. But it's constantly evolving, and it's most of the time, I'm not telling you got to go out and buy new models and rework your whole list. I'm telling you, minor war gear changes, minor target priority changes go a long way. They go almost as long as a way as hard changing units. Okay. I'm not saying you don't need to, or that it isn't a good idea to do that. Depends on your list, but
I will be the example here. I didn't hard change a lot of units. I have 3 lists. I did a hard change with the, Predator Annihilator and things. And then I have a list where I just dropped the unit of Sanguinary Guard, took JPI, and dropped my Ball Predator and took some aggressors. I took more melee, heavy punching Blood Angels. And I'm running all, minus a Brutalis, a Death Company Brutalis. Running all infantry based. It is 100% melee. There is no tank busting other than that Brutalis. Unless you count the 2 units of JPI. Oh, also in the Lancing Sanguinary Guard. And then also the aggressors that have like 37 power fists.
Right. None of those are conventionally tank busting.
Exactly.
But if you target priority correctly.
Exactly.
It can be.
Yep.
And if you take, again, this list being the example, arguably minor changes. Yes, you swapped out units, but what really happened is when you switched over to more JPI, you said, well, now these aren't supposed to be like infantry clearing.
Yep.
Right? That's not their job. So you unconventionally use them for tank busting, and that works because you know your target priority, right? If you wanted more tank busting, you would go with like the Predator Annihilators and the ballistics, right?
Yep.
Because that's like easily, but that's its job.
Yep.
You didn't want to, like, your first list adjustment was more about like, I don't want to buy a bunch of models. I don't want to make this like list change arguable. I want to leverage my plan of all infantry, all melee as is. And how do I make the minimum number of changes so I can keep doing that, but answer these problems?
Well, and the thing is too, because I know I'm going to fight hordes. I know I'm going to fight certain things that I'm not in, aren't conventional meta right now. I still have answers to those. Right? I have aggressors that have a lot of dangerous flamethrowers at AP1. Sure, they're 1 damage. Doesn't matter. They're AP1. And there's a lot of them. It's still Ball Predator. It's still a Ball Predator. I can still clear a decent amount of hordes with that. I can still send the JPI at that. The answer is I have an adaptable list to whatever I have to fight. It is adaptable. It is all now target priority. I still have 2 units of suppressors. I can fly around and do the deep striking. I can do the -1/-1. Like I can do all the things. All I have done is a minor shift. I dropped a model or 2 to take 3 different units that did arguably the same jobs, but had more utility or had more options, had more target priority options. That's all I did. It was a giant shift. It wasn't anything crazy. And I have built these 3 lists to demonstrate you can go crazy with your change. You can go as far as to buying a whole night, throwing in your list and going, I have an answer. You can go as moderate as I took some more las cannons than I usually take. Or you can go as minimal as, no, I'm just going to take a different spice of the same seasoning, the answer is you can shift it how you want. I built these lists to purely demonstrate exactly what this talk was.
Sure.
It can happen, and you can do it for any faction you play.
Yep. And the only thing I'll caveat is it's obviously easier. So for if we have casual listeners that are you know what, I'm interested in the competitive, but between work and the kids and whatever else, I get 1 game a month, man.
Yeah.
Totally get it. But that's where shifting to the ball preds and stuff like that. It's no, those are easily, clearly tank busting and you know what you're supposed to do with them. It requires a little less finesse as to target priority.
Yep.
For those that are you know what, I'm getting at least a game a week and I'm trying to get better. And what do I do competitively? That's where I think you get a bit of okay, now you can make less shifts as far as your list, but you're trying to make bigger shifts as far as your choices, your target priority, etc.
Right. You think we beat this horse dead?
Pretty much.
And then beat him again. All right.
Nay, not again.
Nay. Well, on that bad joke, or is it bad dad joke? Whatever. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week. Hey everybody, it's Aaron. I want to thank you again for tuning in for this episode of Gopher's Workshop with us, hanging out and listening. Remember, leave a 5-star review. Let us know what you think. And if you feel like supporting us, you can always go to Patreon in the show notes below. Thanks. Till next time.